That night, New York City was drenched in neon lights and cold rain. Beneath the low clouds, the Blackwood Tower loomed like a monolith of black steel in the heart of Manhattan, reflecting streaks of light that glimmered like a blade sliding across the throat of a secret. Elena Monroe tightened her thin coat, her hand trembling slightly as she stepped out of the silver taxi. She looked up on the 89th floor. The lights were still on. They said Adrian Blackwood never slept before 3 a.m., and no one truly knew what the young tycoon did behind the closed doors of Blackwood Holdings. Elena took a deep breath. She had been preparing for this interview for 2 weeks. It was supposed to be just a senior communications assistant position, but when she received an interview invitation sealed with Adrian Blackwood's personal crest, she knew it was far from ordinary. The elevator stopped at the top floor, where the air carried the scent of leather and faint smoke. Adrian's office was so vast that a person's shadow could dissolve within it. A massive pane of glass overlooked the city, the dim light tracing the edges of the man's black hair as he stood with his back to her. "Sit down." His voice was low, rough like aged whiskey, and even without turning around, it made her heart skip a beat. Elena sat carefully, placing her portfolio on the desk. She'd heard the rumors about the heir to the Blackwood dynasty rich, cold, and rumored to have ties to the underworld. But none of those stories prepared her for the reality of facing him. When Adrian finally turned around, his gaze struck her like a current of electricity. His eyes were gray-cold, deep, and impossible to read. "Do you know why I chose to bring you here, Elena?" The question caught her off guard. "Mr. Blackwood, I thought it was because of my resume." He chuckled softly, a sound that carried both amusement and something darker. "Your resume is perfect. Too perfect. Almost as if someone wrote it just to make me notice." The air thickened. Elena felt her heart pounding against her ribs. He knew. Before she could speak, Adrian moved closer. The space between them shrank until his presence filled it. The scent of sandalwood and tobacco enveloped her. Dizzying. "You see, Monroe, I have a habit of not trusting anyone, especially beautiful women who walk into my life exactly when I need them." Elena swallowed hard, her fingers tightening on the edge of her chair. "If you don't trust me, then why invite me here?" Adrian leaned down, his voice brushing against her skin cold enough to make her shiver. "Because I want to know who you really are." When she left the Blackwood Tower, the rain had stopped, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Elena quickened her pace, heels striking against the wet pavement. She had erased every trace, every connection, every past life. But Adrian Blackwood was not a man easily deceived. Her phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number appeared. "You shouldn't have stayed there that long. Monroe, he'll figure it out." Elena deleted the message immediately. She knew who he was, and she knew the sender officially had been dead for 2 years. 3 days later, a call came from Blackwood's private secretaries. "Adrian would like you to start immediately. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. The tone left no room for refusal. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Adrian's gray eyes haunted her eyes that seemed to see through every lie. She had been trained to handle men like him, but with Adrian, every skill failed her. Adrian Blackwood wasn't just a CEO. He was a riddle with no answer, a darkness that knew how to smile. The next morning, when she entered the office, he was on the phone, his voice sharp as glass. "No, handle it quietly. I don't want to hear that name again." He hung up, his gaze meeting hers just enough to make anyone forget how to breathe. "You're here." Elena nodded, trying to hide her tension. Adrian gestured toward the desk beside his. "You'll sit here. Everything that comes to me goes through you first. And remember, never open an email without a sender's name." "Why not?" "Because one small mistake could make you disappear from this world." His words were soft, but they chilled her to the bone. That evening, while sorting through documents, Elena accidentally found a thick envelope with no name, only a wax seal embossed with a falcon, the insignia of the Aegis, the underground organization she once belonged to. Her hands trembled. She glanced around. Adrian was gone, but before she could open it, his voice echoed behind her, calm and steady as a heartbeat in the dark. "What are you looking for, Monroe?" She spun around, the envelope slipping from her grasp. He stood there, not angry, just watching her with unreadable eyes. Mr. Blackwood. I was only organizing the files. He bent down, picked up the envelope, turned it over in his hand, and smiled faintly. Interesting. Letters like these only reach those who owe blood to the Aegis. Elena froze. He knew. He had always known. Adrian stepped closer, lifting her chin lightly with one finger. His gaze cut across her like the edge of a blade. Perhaps I was wrong. You're not just an assistant. For a heartbeat. Elena forgot how to breathe. He tilted his head, his lips close enough that she could feel his breath mingling with the sound of rain outside. And if you don't tell me the truth, Monroe, I'll find it, my way. That night, Elena sat alone in her small Brooklyn apartment, staring through the fogged window. The city lights shimmered in her eyes, the reflection of someone caught between two worlds, the darkness she had sworn to leave behind, and the man pulling her back into it. Her phone buzzed again. This time, not from an unknown number. Adrian Blackwood. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late. We have work to do. And don't forget the envelope. Elena pressed her lips together, staring at the last line. Her heart raced. He knew everything, and still, he kept her in the game. In the reflection of the screen, her eyes turned cold. If you want to play, Adrian Blackwood. I won't lose. A cold wind swept through the window, carrying the scent of smoke and old memories. Somewhere on the 89th floor, the man was watching the world below and smiling. The night had only just opened its eyes. The next morning, New York was wrapped in a thin veil of mist. The Blackwood Tower loomed like a steel beast breathing cold air, its reflection rippling across the stream of hurried cars below. Elena stepped into the lobby, the chandelier's light spilling across her face, soft and fractured, like a reminder that everything here was beautiful only because it was unreal. She wore a simple black dress, gently fitted, elegant, calm, but not overly revealing. Around her wrist was a small silver watch, a gift from the past, and the only signal still linking her to her old world. The elevator opened on the 89th floor. The office still carried its familiar scent, oak wood, leather, and the faintest trace of smoke. Adrian stood before the massive glass wall, his back straight, hands in his pockets. The city's light glinted in his gray eyes, making him look like a statue carved from ice. On time. His voice cut through the silence as she closed the door behind her, without turning around. You told me not to be late. Elena's voice was calm, but her gaze was sharper than her tone. Adrian tilted his head slightly, as though her answer amused him. Good. Most people test my limits. But you, it seems you're testing your own. He turned. The gray suit framed him perfectly, every button aligned with precision. But what held Elena's gaze was not his clothes. It was his eyes, tranquil, focused, disorienting. We have a meeting at 9:30, he said. But before that, he paused, stepping closer to the desk where she was arranging documents. I want to ask you something. Yes, sir. Have you opened the envelope? Elena looked up. His voice hadn't changed, yet each word sliced cleanly through the air. I haven't. Adrian's lips curved, half a smile, half something else. Good, but risky. He circled behind her, leaning close enough that his breath brushed her neck. That thing isn't for the faint of heart. Once you know, there's no turning back. She said nothing. Only the steady tick of the wall clock echoed through the still room. Adrian straightened. All right, let's go. Today, you'll learn to see the world with real eyes. They left the tower in a sleek black Bentley, gliding through the stream of cars along Fifth Avenue. Adrian sat in silence, one hand resting on his knee, his gaze fixed outside. Elena watched him through the tinted glass, wondering what he thought about in moments like this. I heard you're involved in every major financial deal on the East Coast, she said, breaking the quiet. Heard he smirked slightly. What people hear about me usually isn't worth believing. That includes you. Her lips curved faintly. Then what should I believe in? In what you see, but never in the way I make you see it. Elena turned away. His words reminded her of the first lesson she'd ever learned in Aegis. The most dangerous man isn't the one holding a gun, It's the one who makes you forget your hands are shaking. The car stopped before an old warehouse by the Hudson River. The early wind carried the scent of salt and rust. No signboards. Only a massive steel door guarded by two men in black, guns hidden beneath their coats. Mr. Blackwood. One of them nodded slightly and opened the door. Inside stretched a vast, cold space. Fluorescent lights flickered over rows of rusting containers. In the center stood a long table draped in black cloth. 3 men were waiting. Elena recognized them, names erased from federal databases long ago. Dominic Hale, ex-officer, Miguel Torres, underground shipping lord, and the third someone she thought had died years ago, Logan Price. Her expression didn't change, but her pulse stopped cold. Logan had once been her superior in Aegis, the only man who knew she had betrayed the organization. He looked at her now, no surprise in his eyes, only a faint smile, sharp and familiar, smelling of gunpowder and memory. Adrian stepped forward, his tone glacial. Let's begin. I want to know why the shipment's late. And don't try lying to me. Logan, you know how it is, Logan said smoothly. The routes are tighter now. And my people. His eyes flicked toward Elena. Apparently, someone tipped off the police. The cargo was stopped at the port. The air thickened. Elena lowered her gaze, avoiding both their eyes. Adrian didn't look at her. He simply removed his gloves and set them on the table. You're saying someone in my circle betrayed me? I'm not saying anything, Logan replied, that lazy smile never fading. Just a suggestion. A gunshot cracked the silence. The bullet tore through the air and lodged into the table's leg, inches from Logan's hand. The smell of gunpowder spread quickly. Adrian still held the small pistol, his face unreadable. I don't like suggestions, he said quietly. I like the truth. Logan's smile vanished, but he didn't speak again. Elena kept her silence too, though her hands tightened inside her coat pockets. She knew Logan wouldn't risk a false accusation, not unless someone really was closing in on her trail. Adrian holstered the gun and gestured to end the meeting. As they left the warehouse, he said softly, just for her to hear. Do you know why I didn't actually shoot him? Elena shook her head. Because I want to see what he says next, and what you'll do. That afternoon, they returned to the tower. The air between them was heavy, but quiet, like the final note of a song stretched too tight to break. Elena sat in the small office next to his, eyes fixed on the frosted glass that separated them. Adrian was writing, pen gliding smoothly, his face calm, composed. She thought of Logan, of the bullet that grazed the table, of Adrian's eyes as he pulled the trigger. There had been no hesitation, only calculation. Death, to him, was just another tool. Her phone buzzed. Another anonymous message appeared. If he hasn't killed you yet, it means he wants to use you. Be careful, Monroe. Every word is a bullet. Elena deleted it, but the words stayed, echoing inside her. Adrian knocked on her door and stepped in. Would you be willing to accompany me to an event tonight? She looked up, surprised. An event? A charity gala for the International Bank. You'll play the role of the obedient assistant. Just smile and make sure no one realizes you're watching. Elena nodded. Understood. He studied her for a long moment, then said quietly, Do you know what I hate most in a person? Monroe, no. When they think they can hide behind their own perfection. A faint smile crossed his lips. Dangerous. Charming? You're good. But you forget. I'm better. He left the room, and silence settled behind him. Elena exhaled slowly, leaning back in her chair. The sunset filtered through the glass, painting her face in gold, a calm face that betrayed nothing of the storm beneath. She smiled faintly, not a smile of fear, but of realization. Maybe she wasn't just a pawn in this game. Outside, the New York sky deepened into night. On the 89th floor, the lights in Adrian's office still burned cold, metallic, reflecting the shape of a man preparing his next move. And somewhere, high among the dark clouds, the truth began to change color. New York shimmered that night. The glow from skyscrapers mingled with hundreds of flickering candles, reflected on the glass walls of the Langford Hotel, the site of the high society charity gala. Elena stood motionless before the mirror in the hotel's dressing room. The black silk gown traced the lines of her slender figure, its neckline low enough to intrigue without flaunting, the kind that drew admiration for its restraint. Her hair was swept into a graceful bun, a few soft strands framing her delicate face. In the mirror, her brown eyes reflected something unreadable, not confidence, not fear, only the composure of someone long accustomed to the dark, now preparing to step into a place where light exposes everything. The door opened. Adrian entered. He wore a tailored black tuxedo, silver-gray silk tie. The light caught his features, carving them into sharp, marble-cold perfection. "You look different." "Different?" she asked, lips curving faintly. "Different in a way that makes people look longer than they should." Elena gave a small laugh, brief, controlled, but enough for him to notice that there was something in her eyes that didn't belong here. Adrian stepped closer and extended his hand. "Let's go. Monroe, don't forget tonight. You belong to me." The words were soft, but they shimmered in the air like a blade. Elena placed her hand in his, warmth sparking at the touch. In that moment, she realized she was stepping into a new game, one where every smile had a price. The ballroom glittered beneath a ceiling draped in thousands of crystals. Men in black suits, women in dazzling gowns, an orchestra of wealth and elegance playing to a slow jazz rhythm. When Adrian entered, heads turned, a few handshakes, polite greetings, practiced smiles. His own courtesy was measured, his smile never reaching his eyes. Elena followed a few steps behind, composed, poised, her expression the picture of a perfect assistant. No one could have guessed that behind those calm lips was someone who once lived in the underworld, who once knew how to pull a trigger without trembling. Adrian stopped beside a small group near the bar. A middle-aged man stepped forward, his face kind, but his eyes shrewd. "Elena, this is Charles Wentworth, the chairman of Global Bank. Charles, this is Monroe, my assistant. A pleasure to meet you." "Miss Monroe." "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Wentworth," she replied, softly gentle, but never weak. Adrian leaned closer and murmured in her ear, "Keep that smile. He likes women who hide knives behind their eyes." She didn't answer, just lifted her glass of wine. The crimson light flickered in her eyes like a small flame, quiet, steady, dangerous. Near the middle of the evening, Adrian slipped away to greet more guests. Elena stood alone by the balcony, watching the ballroom below. Laughter, the clink of glasses, the lilting piano all blending into a symphony of luxury and emptiness. Then a familiar voice came from behind. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Monroe." She turned. Logan Price. He wore a white suit, the same old smirk on his lips, but his eyes were sharper, as if holding a winning card no one else could see. Elena Monroe, working for Adrian Blackwood. Who would have thought? "You've always had a taste for drama." "Logan," she said quietly, "not me, him. He'll crush you when he finds out the truth." Elena's hand tightened around her glass. "Then pray he doesn't learn it from you." Logan chuckled, leaning close enough that his breath brushed her ear. "Something interesting's going to happen tonight. And when it does, let's see if he still keeps you by his side." He walked away before she could respond. Elena stood still, the light from the chandelier trembling in her wineglass. Adrian returned soon after. He took one look at her and caught the shift in her eyes. "Who upset you, Helen?" "I just don't like parties. Bad liar." He leaned in, his voice low and smooth enough to make her pulse skip. "When you lie, Monroe, your eyes stay steady, but your pulse at your throat gives you away." Elena froze. She wanted to answer, but Adrian's hand brushed her cheek, a fleeting touch, intimate enough to blur all lines of rank. "Don't worry. Whatever happens, I'll stand between you and it." He walked off, leaving her amid the swell of music. But his words didn't comfort her, they scared her. Because in their world, standing between could mean protection or warning. The chime of crystal bells announced the charity auction. Lights dimmed, the stage glowed. The first item, a nameless oil painting, opened at $500,000. Laughter, bids, and applause filled the room. From the corner of her eye, Elena noticed a waiter pushing a cart of wine toward the VIP tables. He hesitated slightly near Adrian. She caught the subtle movement of his hand slipping into his pocket, Instinct took over. She dropped her glass and lunged forward, shoving the waiter aside. The crash of shattered glass cut through the music every head turned. On the floor, a small dagger clattered from the waiter's hand, the blade flashing silver. Security swarmed, tackling him to the ground. The room buzzed with shock. Adrian remained seated, eyes fixed on her not with surprise, but with recognition. "Elena," he said under his breath, so only she could hear. "How did you know?" Her breath came fast, cold sweat trailing down her neck. "I just thought he looked suspicious." Adrian rose, closing the distance between them. His hand clamped around her wrist a bit too firmly. No one reacts that fast to suspicion. Their eyes locked a silence thick enough to choke the air. Under the lights, he looked like stone, she, a woman standing on the edge. After the party, he said, "We're going to talk." It wasn't a request. It was a command. When the gala finally ended, the city outside still glowed bright. But inside, Elena, everything blurred into gray. She sat silent in the car the entire ride back. Adrian said nothing either. His eyes fixed ahead, his face unreadable. The car stopped at the base of the Blackwood Tower. He stepped out, then paused, looking back at her. "You've had training, haven't you?" Her heart skipped. "What did you say?" Adrian moved closer, his voice soft but his gaze cold. "The way you pushed him, the way you stood between us. That's not a secretary's reflex." Elena lowered her head. Silent. He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Who are you?" "Monroe." She didn't answer. The city lights shimmered in her brown eyes, now glistening with something that looked almost like tears. Adrian let go and turned away. "Fine. If you won't tell me, I'll find out. But remember this, don't ever let me catch you lying." The elevator doors closed behind him, leaving Elena standing in the marble lobby, bathed in the pale white glow. She inhaled deeply, her chest tight with something between fear and defiance. Outside the glass walls, the season's first snow was falling, melting the moment it touched the ground. Fragile, cold, and leaving no trace. Just like her. Upstairs, Adrian stood by the window, pulling a small black phone from his pocket. A message waited on the screen. "He isn't who you think. Aegis wants her back. And they've already begun to move." His finger lingered over the text before he deleted it. Outside, the snow began to fall harder. In the stillness of that room, the light glinted across the face of a man slowly realizing the darkness he thought he controlled was creeping into the one place he never expected his heart. The next morning, the New York sky was pale gray, like smoke spread thin over the city. The snow had melted, leaving only cold streaks of water sliding down the glass walls of the Blackwood Tower. Elena sat quietly in her small office, eyes fixed on her screen. Everything appeared normal. The secretary sent meeting schedules. The finance assistant emailed reports. The phone rang a few times and went silent again. But something had changed the air in the building. The way the guards glanced at her, even the voices over the intercom. Everything felt like it was watching, measuring each of her breaths. She knew Adrian had started investigating. Since the night of the gala, he hadn't spoken a word to her. That morning, when she entered the conference room, his gaze brushed over her like a blade, not out of anger but calculation. Elena drew a deep breath, steadying herself. She had lived half her life behind masks, but never before had hiding felt so heavy. A message appeared on her phone, floor 90. Now, no name, but she knew who it was. She stepped into the elevator, fingers cold despite the warmth inside the tower. When the doors slid open, the 90th floor emerged black in silver tones. Silence dense as smoke. This floor didn't exist on the official plans. Only those who were allowed knew it was there. Adrian stood by the table, hands in his pockets, posture straight like a man who needed no support. On the screen before him played footage from the gala the moment she shoved the waiter, the knife clattering to the floor, and his eyes locking onto hers. "You moved faster than my security team," he said, voice low, unreadable. "Explain." "Instinct," she replied. "No instinct teaches you to strike a man's wrist that precisely." Elena stayed silent. Adrian stepped closer, his eyes pinned on hers. "Where were you trained, Monroe, Mr. Blackwood. Answer me. He didn't raise his voice, yet the weight of it pressed against her chest until her heartbeat faltered. Elena lifted her gaze, tired, not afraid. What do you think I am? Adrian leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed her neck. I don't think... I verify. Her voice dropped to a whisper. If I were really a threat, do you think I would have saved you in front of everyone last night? He paused. For an instant, something shifted in his eyes, a flicker between trust and betrayal. Elena continued softly. I'm not here to hurt you, but you're the one pulling me back into the place I tried to escape. Adrian's gaze lingered on her. In those gray eyes, a faint warmth flickered then vanished. He turned, picked up a folder from the table, and tossed it in front of her. This is what I found. Monroe isn't your real name. The pages fell open an old photograph from 7 years ago. Long brown hair, a younger face, sharp eyes of an undercover operative. The name beneath the photo, Evelyn Rhodes. She froze. Surprised Adrian's tone carried a trace of irony. Aegis doesn't forgive traitors. So tell me, why did they let you live? Elena's hands clenched. Her voice wavered. Because I did what they couldn't, destroyed a blood contract. Adrian tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing. With whom? With my brother. The room fell silent. Only the hum of the projector filled the air. Elena's next words came slowly, each one like a wound reopened. He was a senior Aegis agent, in charge of underground arms trades. I found out he was preparing to sell weapons to a terrorist group. I reported him. They killed him, and blamed me. She gave a faint, broken laugh. Tears had already fallen unnoticed. Since then, I disappeared. Monroe was just a name I borrowed to survive. Adrian stood motionless. His face softened, the trace of mockery gone. Without a word, he stepped forward and brushed away a tear from her cheek, a touch so gentle that time itself seemed to pause. Evelyn, he whispered. Her true name sounded strange in his voice, too real, too fragile, as if the wall between master and subordinate had finally cracked. She shook her head. Don't call me that. She's dead. Adrian sighed, sitting on the edge of the desk, resting his chin lightly on one hand. I thought I'd seen every kind of lie in this world. But you confuse me, Monroe, because I can't tell what's real anymore. She met his eyes. I don't need you to believe me. No. His voice deepened, something burning behind the ice. I want to believe you. And that's the most dangerous thing of all. They stared at each other across an undefined space caught between truth and illusion. The silence lasted until his phone rang sharply on the table. He answered, voice turning cold. What? When? Fine, keep him there. He hung up, eyes steady on her. Logan Price has been caught. He's holding a file on Aegis, and your name is in it. Elena stiffened. You captured him, no? I just wanted a meeting. But now, he's out of options. She looked at him, fear and trust warring in her gaze. What are you going to do? Adrian stepped closer, voice quiet but resolute. I won't let anyone touch you, not Aegis, not your past. But in return, I want the truth. All of it. Elena held his gaze. And in that moment, she realized he wasn't speaking as a CEO. He was speaking from a loneliness she'd never dared to touch. That evening, the city was draped again in rain. Adrian sat alone in his office, turning the pages of her old file. Evelyn Elena stared up at him from the photo on his desk, on a blank sheet beside it. He had written by hand, save, or destroy, he sighed, glancing out the window. The distant city lights reflected in his eyes that once knew certainty, now clouded by the woman who blurred every line he lived by. The door opened softly. Elena entered, holding a thick envelope. I think you should see this. Inside was a small silver USB drive, etched with the Aegis insignia. Data I took before I left them, she said. Adrian looked at her. You trust me this much? She smiled faintly. No. But if I don't give it to you, Aegis will. He took it, their eyes meeting once again. Monroe? Have you ever thought that if you hadn't walked into my life, things would have been easier? Yes, she said simply. But easier isn't always better. Adrian chuckled softly, a rare, genuine sound. You're making me forget why I ever needed to doubt you. Don't forget, she replied quietly. Because the moment you stop doubting me, I'll have no way left to protect you. He said nothing, but something in her words struck deep. Outside, thunder cracked open the night sky. In the vast room, only two figures remained, one who lived by logic, and one who had lost all faith in truth. And between them lay the most dangerous thing of all, the fragile, terrifying spark of a love just beginning to take shape, sharp as a blade gleaming in the dark. 3 days later, snow blanketed the Hudson River in white. The city seemed to slow down. Even the sound of distant car horns was swallowed by the thick layer of snow. Inside the Blackwood Tower, dim light fell across the long hallway, glinting off the abstract paintings that lined the walls. Elena sat in her office, eyes fixed on the screen filled with lines of encrypted code. She had stayed up all night decoding the USB drive, the same one she had handed to Adrian herself. Inside were records of secret transactions between Aegis and several major financial conglomerates, including Blackwood Holdings. Every line that appeared cut into her like a blade. Adrian didn't know yet, or perhaps he did and was waiting for her to confess. She rubbed her temples. For days, he had been avoiding her. No messages, no instructions, no sudden meetings, only silence, heavy, cold, and tense, yet beneath it, she could feel the storm gathering. The door opened. Adrian's voice broke the quiet, low and dry. You're still here. She looked up. He walked in, long coat dusted with melting snow. He looked tired, restrained like a man who hadn't slept in days but refused to show it. I wanted to review the data, she said softly. Adrian came closer, his eyes flicking to the screen to the line that read BHA37. He stopped, his voice dropping. You opened it. Elena turned her chair to face him. I need to understand what I'm caught in, before I keep trusting you. Trust? He gave a short, humorless laugh. You talk about trust more than anyone, and yet you're the one who hides the most from me. Because I don't have a choice. Her voice rose, then softened again. Do you think I want to live in lies? I'm tired. Adrian. But if I tell you everything, we'll both be dead. The room fell silent. Only the wind howled against the glass. Adrian's expression softened. You think I don't know? He said quietly. Aegis used to be a silent shareholder of Blackwood. My father signed the contract himself to build the empire I now run. I inherited it, and the blood debt that came with it. Elena stared at him, stunned. She hadn't expected him to admit it so easily. Then why stay? You could walk away. Cut it off. Adrian shook his head, a faint, bitter smile on his lips. You're naive. Monroe, in this world, there's no walking away. There's only hiding or dying. I chose to stand in the middle, close enough to control them, far enough not to fall with them. He turned toward the window. His reflection blurred in the snow's pale light. I used to think power was freedom, but the higher I climbed, the clearer it became freedom is just a beautiful lie we sell to justify the price of our souls. Elena stepped closer. You're not your father. He turned, eyes locking onto hers. Deep, unreadable. And you, are you sure you're not still Aegis? The question froze her, not because she doubted herself, but because it struck straight at the fear she'd buried deepest. I left them, she whispered. I betrayed them. I chose freedom. But you still live on what they gave you, Adrian said, not harshly, only stating fact. The IDs, the money, the forged past all came from a hand inside Aegis. Have you ever wondered why they haven't killed you yet? Elena said nothing. He stepped closer, so close she had to look up to meet his gaze. Maybe you're still their pawn, and they want me to believe you. The distance between them vanished. Adrian's hand rose, brushing against her throat, feeling her pulse. In his eyes was a strange light, both warm and terrifying. Do you know what the cruelest part of this is? Monroe, he murmured. It's that I want to believe you, even when every piece of evidence says I shouldn't. Elena met his gaze, and in that moment, She saw what no words could hide. He was afraid. Not of betrayal, but of losing the only reason he had left, to believe in something beyond his own darkness. She caught his wrist, her voice low but steady. "If you want the truth, give me time. Aegis is preparing a new operation. This one could bring down Blackwood." Adrian stood still, then released her hand, taking a step back. "You have 3 days. Only 3. After that, if I don't have answers, I'll consider you one of them." That night, Elena didn't go home. She sat alone in the dark, the glow of her computer flickering across her face. Each file she opened revealed fragments, names, codes, locations. Then she saw a line she hadn't noticed before, A' BWH core access. She began to decrypt it, then froze. BWH core, Blackwood Holdings core system. Aegis wasn't just investing in the company. They were infiltrating it, taking over its financial systems, piece by piece. A chill ran down her spine. Everything was moving faster than she had imagined. The phone rang. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, deep, slow, deliberate. "Evelyn Rhodes. Long time no see?" Her breath caught. She knew that voice. "Nathan Rhodes, her brother. You can't be. You're dead." Death is a flexible term. Aegis doesn't let anyone truly leave. Her grip tightened on the phone. "What do you want?" "Not much. Just you back where you belong. And bring what you took. Blackwood's about to fall. Evelyn, don't bury yourself with him. Adrian isn't like them." Nathan laughed. "No one's like them until they need power to protect what they love. You'll see." The line went dead. Elena sat frozen, the phone slipping from her hand. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her pale face, trembling, tear-streaked, fragile. Meanwhile, on the 90th floor, Adrian watched a security feed. The screen showed a cut from the 50th floor cameras, Elena answering a call. He couldn't hear the words, only saw her expression, real fear, not performed. He turned off the monitor, leaning back in his chair, his hand clenched unconsciously. Inside him, 2 voices battled, trust her or destroy her. Adrian rose, walking to the window. Below, the city still gleamed. But in that light, all he saw were moving shadows, pawns on the board of power. Maybe he was one of them too. He poured a drink, the amber liquid catching the light. "Monroe," he murmured into the glass. "Where are you leading me?" The next morning, Elena returned to the tower. The air was still cold, but there was something different in her eyes now, resolve, even danger. She placed a thick file on Adrian's desk, her gaze unwavering. "This is Aegis's infiltration plan. They'll take over Blackwood's systems within 72 hours. Adrian studied her, not asking how she got it, or what she'd done to find it. He simply nodded. "And you? Where will you stand when it happens?" Elena answered quietly, but with certainty. "I'll stand with you, until you no longer need me." He looked at her for a long moment. In his eyes, something unspoken stirred, not quite trust, not quite doubt, but something that made turning away impossible. Outside, the snow kept falling, and between them, the fragile crack of trust not yet healed, but not broken either. Dawn was just breaking, and New York still lay half asleep beneath a thin veil of mist. On the 90th floor of the Blackwood Tower, the pale white lights cast long reflections across glass panels that mirrored the figures moving rapidly around the control desk. Elena stood beside Adrian, her eyes fixed on the screen filled with streaming access codes. Lines of red symbols scrolled downward, signs that the system was being attacked from multiple fronts. "It started at 3 a.m., Adrian said quietly, his voice cold as steel. "They're breaching through internal level security, which means someone inside opened the gate for them." Elena's hand tightened slightly. "Have you ruled anyone out yet?" 3 people, but none capable of this. To pull it off, you'd need someone who understands the core architecture. He paused, his gaze shifting toward her. Elena lifted her head, meeting his eyes without flinching. "You mean me, don't you?" Silence? The air between them froze. Adrian gave a faint smile, one without any warmth. "You always know how to get ahead of me." Because I used to be on the other side. He stepped closer, until only a breath separated them. If I asked you to swear you had nothing to do with this, could you? Elena answered slowly, each word deliberate. I'm not the one who opened the door, but I know who did. Adrian's gaze sharpened. Who? She hesitated for a moment, then said, Nathan Rhodes. He stiffened. Your brother. He's not my brother anymore. Her voice cracked slightly. He wants Blackwood to fall. He still thinks I'm his pawn. But this time, I'll end it. Adrian said nothing for a moment, his jaw tightening. What are you planning to do? Elena turned back to the console, pulling up a connection map. If Aegis is attacking from within, they must have a transmission hub nearby. I can trace the source, but I'll need access to the core system. That access belongs only to me, he said. Then we do it together. That afternoon, a snowstorm swept through the city. The sky turned the color of ash, wind howling through the skyline. Inside Blackwood Tower, the lights dimmed, leaving only the sound of keyboards and the soft pulse of machinery. Elena worked non-stop typing codes, matching data, plotting paths. Every flicker on the screen made her pulse quicken. Beside her, Adrian stood silent, gray eyes never leaving her face. After 3 hours, she stopped, exhaling hard. I found it. The signal hub is in Brooklyn, an abandoned warehouse by the river. Adrian grabbed his coat. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. I'm not letting you walk into a wolf's den alone. Monroe? She wanted to argue, but something in his tone, part command, part protection, made the words fade from her lips. Night. The warehouse lay buried in snow, their headlights cutting through the haze. Inside, the air smelled of rust and dust. Rows of old servers blinked weakly, humming like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. Elena knelt by a control unit. This is one of Aegis's relay centers. They're using it to access Blackwood's systems. Can you shut it down? Adrian asked. Only by reaching the main server. That means I'll have to use my old Aegis credentials. He frowned. You know what that means. She nodded. If I log in, they'll know I'm alive, and they'll come. Adrian stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. That touch warm, steady, sent a tremor through her even in the frozen air. If that happens, he said softly, I won't let anyone touch you. Elena looked up, meeting his eyes. In them, there was no more coldness, only something raw and painfully real. You're doing something foolish. Adrian, she whispered, you shouldn't care about me. He gave a faint, weary smile. I know. But I've never been good at doing what I should. For a moment, the world went still, no hum of machines, no breath of winter. Only two people, standing in the dark, holding between them a threat that could consume everything they knew, and still, neither could step away. Elena inhaled deeply and began typing the access code. The monitor flared to life, lines of data cascading across the screen. Then a crimson alert appeared. User detected. Aegis priority level. She clenched her hand. They've found me. The warehouse lights flickered. Engines roared outside vehicles approaching fast. Adrian drew his gun, voice sharp as glass. Get behind me, no, you don't understand. The door burst open. 3 men in black stormed in. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the narrow space. Adrian fired back, every shot precise. Elena ducked low, fingers flying over the keyboard, launching the final command, severing the link between Aegis and Blackwood's network. An explosion ripped through the air. Glass shattered. Smoke filled the room. When she lifted her head, Adrian was in front of her, his coat stained crimson. Adrian, she screamed, catching him as he stumbled. He was still conscious, breathing heavily. It's nothing. Just a scratch, he said with a faint grin. Is the link down? She turned to the monitor. The screen flashed. Access terminated. Connection lost. Elena trembled. It's done. Adrian leaned back against the wall, eyes closing. Good. Then it's over. Don't say that. She pressed her hands to his wound, blood seeping through her fingers. I'm not letting you die here. He gave a faint, warm smile, fragile, yet more human than she'd ever seen. Monroe, I always thought I'd die in my own darkness. If anyone ever made me want to step into the light, it'd be you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. mixing with his blood. Don't talk. Please. Sirens wailed in the distance, Blackwood's reinforcements. Elena clutched his hand, her voice shaking. You're going to be fine, I promise. He opened his eyes one last time, that rare softness in them. Keep your promise. Evelyn. Then everything dissolved into the sound of snow and silence. 2 days later, Blackwood Private Hospital. Elena sat by his bed, dark circles under her eyes. Adrian was still unconscious, his face peaceful in a way that felt unreal. Her fingers brushed against his hand the first time she had touched him, not out of duty or fear, but because the ache inside her was too real to ignore. She knew Aegis wasn't finished. They would come for her. And when they did, Adrian would no longer be safe. But looking at him now, she understood there are some things you can't keep running from. Elena bowed her head, whispering softly, You told me not to let anyone touch you, but you're the one who made it impossible for me to let go. Outside the window, snow kept falling, soft white flakes landing on cold glass, melting soundlessly, like small promises whispered between two lost souls, drifting through ashes still warm enough not to break. Night in New York felt as if it had stopped breathing. The snowstorm had passed, leaving behind an air so clear it burned to inhale. In the hospital room, heavy with the scent of antiseptic, the heart monitor pulsed in steady rhythm. Elena sat silently in the chair beside the bed, her fingers wrapped around Adrian's hand, feeling each faint, stubborn beat beneath his skin. 3 days had passed, and he still hadn't woken. The doctors said the wound wasn't fatal, but his body reacted strangely, as if it were resisting being saved. Perhaps a man like Adrian Blackwood never learned how to let someone rescue him. Elena rested her head against the side of the bed, her breath sinking with the mechanical beeps. In the darkness, she could still hear his voice echoing in her mind low, calm, sometimes warm like embers about to die. If anyone ever made me want to step into the light, it'd be you. That sentence replayed again and again, etching itself into her heart like a scar that would never fade. The door opened softly. Footsteps measured, deliberate. Elena looked up. It was Marcus, Adrian's right hand, a tall man with graying hair and eyes sharp as blades, tempered by loyalty. He's still not awake, Marcus asked quietly. Elena shook her head. Marcus looked at the glass partition, his voice low. The company's in chaos. No one but me knows what really happened. But there's something you should know. The board's starting to suspect you. I expected that. Not just because of Aegis, he continued. They found system access logs under your credentials. Elena gave a faint, tired smile. Of course, I used them to cut the connection. True, but they don't know that. And Adrian isn't here to protect you. Elena said nothing. Marcus studied her for a moment, then spoke again. We haven't known each other long, but I've seen the look in his eyes when he talks about you. It's something I've never seen in him before. And if he wakes up to find you in danger, I fear the fallout will be worse than anything Aegis could do. The words made her tighten her grip on Adrian's hand. I don't need you to protect me. I just need him to live. Marcus nodded, then turned and left, leaving the room wrapped once more in silence. Elena rose and walked to the window. The city lights spilled across the snow like shattered glass. She opened her bag, took out a small encrypted phone, and sent a single message, Nathan. Meet me. Alone. 2 a.m. Hudson River. The wind carried a biting chill across the water. Elena stood beneath the old bridge, her black coat drawn tight around her. The amber glow of the streetlights rippled on the river's surface, splitting her reflection into 2 halves. One light, one shadow. A car pulled up a few meters away. Nathan stepped out, leather coat, hair damp with mist. His face hadn't changed, calm, composed, but with a cold cruelty in his eyes that always seemed to cut too deep. You've changed, he said, voice smooth and low. You're not the frightened girl from Aegis anymore. And you, Elena replied softly, are still the man who only knows how to live in darkness. Nathan smiled, his gaze slicing across her like a blade. Darkness is the only thing that doesn't betray you. You're wrong. It just swallows you whole. He stepped closer, stopping only a breath away. I'm not here to debate philosophy. I want what you're holding the remaining data on that USB. Elena's lips curved faintly. You think I'd bring it with me? Nathan tilted his head, amusement flickering in his eyes. No need. I already know where you hid it. One word from me, and my men will have it. Elena met his stare. If you do that, Adrian Blackwood won't let you walk away. Adrian Blackwood. Nathan laughed, the sound harsh in the icy air. He's just a powerful pawn in a larger game. You really think he's different? You were the one who taught people how to lie. Evelyn, don't let your instincts betray you again. You don't know anything about him. Oh, I know more than you think. His tone slowed, each word deliberate. Do you know why Aegis chose Blackwood? Because his father used to be one of us? Elena froze. What? That's right. The founder of Aegis, Thomas Rhodes, once worked with Jonathan Blackwood. They built the first underground trading network together, before turning on each other over control. Where do you think this game began? Adrian is just the heir to that blood debt. Elena took a step back. The wind lashed her face, but it couldn't numb the pain cutting through her chest. You're lying. Nathan smiled. Believe what you want. But if he learns the truth, do you think he'll still trust you? Or will he believe you got close to him just to finish what our father started? Elena's hands clenched, but her voice stayed steady. If what you want is revenge on Blackwood, then take it out on me. I'm the one who destroyed Aegis. No. Evelyn. Nathan's tone softened, almost tender. You were just the instrument. Adrian is the real target, because when he falls, you'll destroy yourself. He turned and walked away, leaving the air around her twisting in the cold wind. Elena stood there for a long time, until the headlights disappeared. Inside her, fragments of doubt ignited pieces of the past shifting, forming a picture too dark to face. Morning came. Adrian woke. The room was washed in pale sunlight. Elena was slumped beside the bed, her hair a tangle across her shoulder. When he stirred, she startled awake. You're awake. Her voice trembled, afraid to break the fragile moment. Adrian looked at her for a long while before a faint smile curved his lips. First time I've seen you cry. She forced a small laugh. You gave me reason to. He tried to sit up. She rushed to help. Don't, she murmured. I've walked away from worse. He rasped. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. She lied, eyes darting away. He noticed, but didn't press. Instead, he reached out, fingertips brushing her cheek. You look exhausted. I didn't dare leave you. They fell into silence, the kind that wasn't tense anymore, nor defensive, just quiet, fragile peace between two people too used to storms. After a long pause, Adrian spoke again. Marcus told me about the board. They're moving against you. I figured, I'll handle it. You don't have to. Yes, I do. His tone was firm. Because I owe them nothing, but I owe you at least one more chance to live. Elena met his gaze, eyes shimmering. She tried to hold back tears, but he leaned closer, his thumb brushing away a single drop. Do you know what terrifies me most? Monroe, he murmured. It's realizing I need you, even when I shouldn't. Elena's hand found his, her breath trembling. Sometimes needing someone isn't wrong. She whispered, It's just too late. Adrian gave a faint smile, fragile. Heartbreaking. If too late is the only beginning we have, then I'll take it. They said nothing more. Outside, the sunlight broke across the snow, spilling into the room and casting two quiet silhouettes, one scarred in body, the other in soul. And in that fragile stillness, Elena understood Nathan's words hadn't been a threat, they were a warning. The truth was rising to the surface, and when it came, it might be their love that burned first. Rain fell over the city like a thin curtain, veiling the cracks spreading through Adrian Blackwood's world. Inside the tower, soft amber light pooled across the wooden floor, stretching toward the glass wall where Elena stood. She was silent, gazing out at the blurred skyline. Raindrops gathered on the glass, trembling for a second before dissolving, as if they had never existed. Everything around her carried on as usual, people coming and going, guards on patrol, meetings relocated elsewhere. But inside her, something had shifted since her encounter with Nathan. He'd told her that Adrian's father was one of Aegis's founders, that the bond between their two families was the root of everything. And she, by cruel coincidence, had become the thread that tied the past to the present. The door behind her opened quietly, footsteps steady, deliberate. Elena. She turned. Adrian stood in the doorway, wearing a simple white shirt, his wrist still bandaged. The dim light traced the lines of his face sharp, yet softer than she remembered. "You should rest," she said quietly. "I've rested enough." He stepped closer, stopping a few paces away. "How long are you going to stand there?" She didn't answer. Adrian's gaze lingered on her, half searching, half guarded. "What are you hiding from me?" The question cut through the room like a blade. Elena took a slow breath, steadying herself. "Nothing?" "Don't lie to me," he said, voice low but edged. "I've seen it in your eyes since I woke up. You're afraid of something." Afraid, she echoed with a faint, brittle laugh. "Do you really think I still know how to be afraid?" "Yes." He moved one step closer, his gray eyes dark as a gathering storm. Because only people who know fear want to protect someone else. Elena looked down, her hands trembled slightly. "You really want the truth?" "Adrian, I always do." "Then listen carefully." Her voice dropped, soft but cutting. "Your father was one of the founders of Aegis. He and my father built that empire together, half power, half blood. But when Aegis began to twist into something else, they split the world with a secret pact. Blackwood took the light, Rhodes took the dark, and I was born in between." Adrian didn't react at first. His gaze lingered on her face, as if searching for which parts were real. "So everything between us. Was it all just design?" Elena lifted her eyes, glistening but resolute. "No, I knew nothing until Nathan came back." "Are you sure?" His voice was rough, strained, or are you just refusing to admit it? "You think I'm clever enough to stage all this?" "No." Adrian's tone softened, though his expression didn't. "But you're clever enough to make me forget I should doubt you." Silence stretched between them, heavy, suffocating. Outside, the rain hit the glass harder, a rhythm for all the things left unsaid. "You don't understand," Elena said quietly. "I didn't come here to destroy you. I came to end the cycle our fathers started. They left us a legacy built on lies. I refuse to be the next chapter." Adrian studied her. "And you think you can end it alone, if I have to?" "Yes." He stepped forward, catching her wrist. "Don't talk like that. You have no idea what you're up against." Elena pulled free, her eyes flashing a blend of pain and defiance. "I know exactly what I'm up against, and that's why I can't let you keep sinking deeper." "You think I'll back down?" Adrian gave a short, rough laugh. "I was born into this world. Elena, I can't walk out of it unless it burns. And if it burns, I'll be the one to light the match." She stared at him, emotion rippling behind her gaze. "And if you burn with it?" He answered quietly, every word steady. "Then at least I'll burn beside you." Elena froze. For a long moment, only the sound of rain filled the air, their breathing blending with the storm. Then she turned away, voice trembling. "You don't understand. If you knew everything, you'd hate me. I've hated many people. Monroe." He stepped closer, his voice a low whisper near her ear. "But none of them ever made me want to stay." She closed her eyes, and the first tear fell. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because you're making me weak." Adrian was silent. Then, slowly, he reached up, his fingertips tracing her cheek warm, unhurried. "You were never weak. Elena, you just forgot what it felt like to be touched by someone who didn't want to use you." She opened her eyes, meeting his no longer cold, but carrying a fragile light that didn't belong to the night. Their breaths mingled. For one suspended heartbeat, the world beyond them ceased to exist. And then he kissed her. It came without warning, but not without meaning, gentle, not desperate. It felt like an apology, and a wound. Elena trembled not from fear, but because for the first time, she couldn't tell if she was resisting or falling. When they parted, the room seemed to hold its breath. Adrian's hand remained at her throat, thumb grazing the cool skin there. "Now I believe," he whispered, "that if there's anything in this world that could make me betray my own reason, it's you." Elena looked at him, a faint smile flickering through her tears. "You're a fool, Adrian Blackwood." "Maybe," he murmured, the ghost of a smile on his lips. "But at least I know who I'm a fool for." Midnight. Elena sat alone, the glow of her laptop painting her face in pale blue light. A new encrypted message had just arrived. "When the clock strikes 12, Aegis will rise again. Don't stand with him. Evelyn." She stared at the words for a long time. Her hand trembled, then she deleted the message. In the hallway, Adrian's silhouette appeared faint under the dim lights. He stood leaning against the wall, watching her. He didn't speak, but his eyes said he already knew she was hiding something. Elena closed the laptop and turned. "You're still awake?" "No, I just don't sleep well when someone I trust starts looking at me like an enemy." She flinched, stepping closer. "I've never seen you as my enemy." Adrian's eyes were tired, shadowed by a worry he couldn't name. "Then tell me the truth. Elena, what is Aegis planning?" Jeanne hesitated. Outside, the rain drummed harder against the windows. A flash of lightning lit her face, revealing the conflict in her eyes. "Finally," she whispered. "They don't just want Blackwood. They want everything." Adrian frowned. "Everything," she nodded. "Aegis planted hidden codes across every bank and corporation tied to your network. When the time comes, the entire financial web will collapse. They'll frame Blackwood, turn you into the face of betrayal." Adrian went still. For a heartbeat. His face hardened to stone, then a strange clarity flickered in his gaze. "Then we'll move first." He stepped forward, taking her hand. "Elena, don't leave me. Not now." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering but steady. "I won't. But if the time comes when I have to choose, I'll choose the way that keeps you alive." He opened his mouth to speak, but she turned away. Outside, the night stretched thick and endless, and for the first time, Adrian realized the darkness didn't just surround them. It lived inside them, where love and trust no longer knew the difference. Morning arrived, shrouded in mist. The sky hung low and gray, as if even the light hesitated to enter their world. On the top floor of Blackwood Tower, the control room glowed with hundreds of screens, streams of data cascading like the calm before a storm forming within the global financial network. Elena stood before the main console, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. Her fingers moved swiftly across the keys, typing commands, listening to the slow ticking of the clock. More than anyone, she knew what was coming when the hands struck 12. Aegis would launch its final strike. Behind her, Adrian entered black suit, no tie. He carried his usual air of composure, but something had changed in his eyes, a weariness that had nothing to do with his body. "They've started moving," he said quietly, voice rough from exhaustion. "Marcus just confirmed it. 5 Blackwood branches in Europe have been hit simultaneously." Elena nodded slightly. "I need access to the main server. It's the only way to stop them." "This time," he said, "you're not going alone." She turned. "You can't access the system. Adrian, they embedded DNA recognition locks. If you touch it, the data will wipe itself. Then I'll protect you," he replied. "Gaze steady. If Aegis detects your trace, they'll come here. I'll hold them off." Elena pressed her lips together, her expression softening for a moment. "You don't owe me that." "No," he said, stepping closer, voice low but resolute. "I owe it to myself for letting you fight alone for too long." 11:17 a.m. The Blackwood data center pulsed with cold light. Rows of towering servers hummed, radiating heat like the breath of a living creature. Elena sat in the center, her keyboard glowing beneath her hands. Sweat dotted her forehead as lines of code flashed, vanished, and returned. Adrian stood behind her, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders to the security team. His tone was sharp, unflinching, but every time he looked at Elena, his chest tightened. She was too calm, the kind of calm that comes from standing too long on the line between life and death. "How much time do you have left?" he asked. "Not much. The system's reacting," she replied quickly. Aegis isn't attacking from outside. They're doing it from within. Adrian froze. What do you mean? She turned to him, eyes dark. They're controlling your own tech division. Someone inside Blackwood is working for them. A chill traced his spine. Marcus. She shook her head. No. Marcus is loyal. But someone higher, someone with access. Adrian paused, then activated his communicator. I want a full log of all executive-level access in the last 24 hours. Now. While he spoke, Elena's fingers kept flying. Suddenly, the monitor flickered red. A warning flashed across the screen. Unauthorized access. User A, Blackwood. She stiffened. Adrian, someone's using your credentials to open a secondary port. He stepped forward sharply. Impossible. My DNA keys are stored offline. Then someone copied your genetic data. In that instant, realization struck him. There was only one place that stored his DNA, the internal medical lab, and only one person with clearance to access it at Marcus. His phone buzzed. He answered, listened in silence, and his face hardened. You were right, Monroe, he said coldly. Marcus is gone. Elena looked up, pain flickering in her eyes. He's working for Aegis, no, Adrian replied grimly. He was working for me, but someone bought him. 11:40, The alarm screamed across the tower. Security protocols activated. Doors sealed. The white lights turned blood red. Elena stayed at the console, eyes locked on the screen. I need 10 more minutes to lock them out. Adrian drew his gun, positioning himself by the door. You've got 10. Footsteps echoed down the hallway fast, deliberate. A team in black stormed in, not Blackwood security, but Aegis mercenaries. Gunfire erupted. Adrian fired back with brutal precision. Each shot deliberate, cold. The scent of gunpowder mixed with the heat of the servers. Bullets ricocheted against metal. He moved like instinct, methodical, silent while the chaos built around them. Elena bit her lip, hands never stopping. A bullet grazed her shoulder. Blood spread through her sleeve, but she didn't flinch. 2 minutes, she shouted. Hold on. Monroe Adrian's voice cut through the noise. He took a hit to the arm, stumbled, but stayed standing. The monitor flashed once, twice, and then the message appeared. Connection terminated. System secured. Elena exhaled, collapsing into her chair. It's done. Adrian rushed to her side, pulling her up. We're leaving, now. They ran down the smoke-filled corridor as alarms wailed behind them. At the emergency elevator, Elena looked back. Rows of servers glowed faintly through the haze. Aegis was locked out. For now. Inside the lift, she leaned against the wall, sweat and blood mingling down her sleeve. Adrian looked at her, voice softer. You're hurt. It's nothing. I'm used to it. She smiled faintly, eyes half closed. Don't, he said, catching her hand. Don't close your eyes. She looked up at him, meeting his gaze, and in those storm-gray eyes, she finally saw it, not power, not calculation, but fear. Adrian, she whispered, voice barely there. If I don't make it, don't come after me. He gripped her hand tighter. Don't say that, I mean it. If they take me, you have to let me go. No. The word came out firm, unhesitant. I've lost too much already. Monroe, I won't lose you. She gave a faint, broken laugh. You can't keep me, Adrian. I belong to the dark. Remember? Then I'll go there with you. Elena laughed through her tears. You're insane. Probably. He smiled, breath uneven. But if madness means this, I'll never want to wake. That afternoon, Blackwood Tower was locked down. Fire crews, police, security forces all swarmed the building. Headlines flooded the airwaves, massive cyber attack on Blackwood Holdings. But no one knew that the real battle hadn't been fought in cyberspace. It had been fought between two hearts, one born of darkness, the other reckless enough to walk into it. Elena was taken to the medical wing. Doctors cleaned and dressed her wound, but her mind stayed restless. Through half-conscious haze, she heard Adrian's voice outside, calm, sharp, issuing orders. When she opened her eyes again, he was there beside her. His eyes were tired but steady. They've pulled back, he said softly. Aegis lost the trail. Marcus? She asked. Not found, he replied, then added quietly, But I'll find him. Elena grasped his hand weakly, shaking her head. Don't. They'll come again. Let them. His voice was low but firm. This time, I'll strike first. She stared at him for a long moment. In her heart, she knew the war was far from over. But what frightened her most wasn't Aegis. It was the truth waiting to surface. The truth about his father, about herself, and about why two people born on opposite sides of the same lie could never let each other go. Outside the window, the sky began to lighten after the storm. Pale sunlight crept across the glass, falling on Adrian's face where shadow and light coexisted. Elena looked at him, voice soft but trembling with feeling. Maybe the most terrifying thing isn't the darkness itself, but when we start to love it. Adrian squeezed her hand. If it's your darkness, he murmured, then I'll gladly drown in it. And in that quiet moment, they sat side by side amid the ashes of a fractured world, hearts beating in defiance, bound by a vow neither had spoken aloud, but both already understood. 2 weeks had passed since the Blackwood Tower attack. The city had returned to its rhythm, but in the depths of the underworld, Aegis still moved silent, patient, like a serpent waiting in the dark. Elena was healing quickly, yet the wound in her shoulder hurt less than the emptiness in her chest. Every day, she still saw Adrian calm, composed, relentless, running his empire as if it had never fallen. But she knew behind those still eyes was a storm barely contained, and sooner or later, it would break free. That night, Adrian called her to the 90th floor. The familiar room was bathed in warm light, scented with oak and the faint trace of smoke. But this time, there were no files, no blueprints, only 2 glasses of red wine on the table. Celebrating something, Elena asked, half teasing, half wary. Adrian turned his back to her. The light caught the silver in his hair. No, he said softly. I wanted to say goodbye. She froze. Goodbye. He turned around. His eyes were deep, unreadable. Aegis sent a message. They're not stopping. If I keep going, Blackwood will drag the whole city down with it. I have to end this the way my father would have. You can't. Her voice trembled as she stepped closer. You're not him, Adrian. No, I'm worse. He smiled faintly, a broken kind of smile. He created Aegis. But if I stay silent, I let it live. Elena reached for his hand. Her fingers shook. Then let me go with you. He shook his head gently. No, you've done enough. The rest is mine to finish. You sound like a man walking to his death. Maybe I am. His tone was calm, almost tender. But at least this time, I'll die for something I chose. Elena stared at him, eyes shimmering. You don't need to atone for your father's sins. You already have. You're Adrian Blackwood, the man who saved the world from the monsters he made. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. No, Monroe. You saved it. That night, Adrian left the tower. The black Bentley disappeared into the rain. From the high floor, Elena watched him go, heart knotted with dread. She couldn't stay still. She opened her laptop, tracing the last signal he'd left behind, coordinates on the Long Island coast. An abandoned storage facility, once owned by Aegis. She drove through the night. Rain hammered the windshield, blurring the world outside. The wind howled, but her heart knew only one direction where he was heading. The building rose from the mist like a monument of ghosts. Sea spray hit the metal walls, and the single light over the entrance flickered weakly, as if warning her back. Inside, the air smelled of rust and oil. Down a long corridor, she found him standing before a bank of old servers glowing pale blue in the dark. He turned when he heard her footsteps. You shouldn't be here. And you shouldn't be alone, she shot back. I told you I'm done watching you fight by yourself. He sighed, a soft, weary smile flickering across his face. You're impossible, and you're reckless. They stood face to face, surrounded by the hum of machines and the distant roar of waves. Elena looked at the monitor strings of ancient code scrolled by, the self-destruct protocol of Aegis. You're wiping everything she asked. Yes, once this network collapses, Aegis will lose all access to its underground systems. But he paused once I started. The system will overload. There won't be time to escape. Elena's breath caught. No, we can disable it remotely. There must be no Monroe. He placed a hand gently on the console. I don't want to just shut down the darkness. I want to bury it. She grabbed his hand tightly. If you stay, I stay. He looked at her, and for the first time, his eyes weren't cold. They glowed with something pure, something almost peaceful. You don't have to die with me, but I can't live if you die. Her words were quiet but resolute. For a heartbeat. The world stopped. Only their heartbeats filled the silence. Adrian cupped her face and drew her close. The kiss came not rushed, not desperate but deep, endless, like the world itself was fading and only they remained. When they parted, he whispered against her ear, "If there's another life, don't choose me." She laughed softly through her tears. "You think I'd want anyone else?" He looked at her one last time, his gray eyes gentle, almost luminous. Then he turned and pressed the final sequence. System overload initiated. 30 seconds to detonation. The siren blared. Red light pulsed through the room. "Adrian, let's go," she cried. He caught her face, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Run, Monroe!" No, he pushed her toward the exit. The steel doors slid shut between them, sealing her on the other side. She pounded on the glass, tears blurring her vision. "Adrian," he smiled faintly through the barrier, lips forming two silent words. "Thank you." A burst of white light tore through the night. The explosion roared across the coast. 3 days later, the sea off Long Island lay calm, as if it had never witnessed the storm. Charred metal fragments dotted the sand. No trace of Adrian Blackwood was ever found. Only a silver bracelet engraved with faded words, "Breathe. Monroe." Elena held the bracelet in her palm, the emptiness inside her heavier than grief. She stood facing the sea. The morning sun glinted off her tear-streaked cheeks. She whispered into the wind, "You were wrong, Adrian. I'm still breathing, but only in the space you left behind." The sky cleared, and the waves rolled in, slow and rhythmic like a heartbeat echoing from far away. And somewhere between the sea and the wind, she thought she heard his voice soft, steady, and smiling. "As long as you're alive, I'm not truly gone." Elena smiled faintly, closing her eyes. The last tear slipped down and vanished into the salt air. From afar, a cold breeze swept across the shore, carrying the scent of smoke and memory. Footprints faded one by one, until nothing remained as if Adrian had never left. Only walked onto the other side of the world, where light and shadow meet, and love, though divided, never dies. If this story touched your heart, follow the channel and share your thoughts below. Every comment is a spark that helps future stories come alive and reach more hearts.